Hey guys, here's the notes for lesson 4. We're going to talk about standardized normal distribution. Okay, so here it says analysis of the top songs on Spotify over a 10-year period reveals that song lengths follow an approximately normal distribution with a mean of 220 seconds and a standard deviation of 26 seconds. So, what I'm going to have you guys do is pause the video and then go ahead and label the appropriate values on the normal distribution. So, this is what you guys did yesterday in the lesson 3 notes. So, go ahead and pause the video and then go ahead and label this information. Okay, here's what you should have gotten when you did it. So we should get these values on the bottom. Remember, 220 is your mean with a standard deviation of 26. So you add 26 each time to your right, subtract 26 to the left, and then here's our normal distribution with the percentages. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's look at the questions we have that we're going to use this information with. So here's actually what I would like you guys to do. I'm going to have you guys once again pause the video and I'm going to have you answer questions 2 through 5 using the information from your normal distribution. So go ahead and pause the video and answer questions 2 through 5. Okay, let's see what you guys got. So the first one was what percent of songs are longer than 246? So we kind of are looking here. Longer means you're going from 246 and then going to the right because these values are bigger. So that means we're going to add up 13.5, 2.35, and the 0.15%. When we add that up, we should get 16% as our answer for number 2. Okay, let's look at number 3. So it says what percent of the songs are between 168 and 246? So here I got my 246, and I want 168, so we want these values in between. So that means I add up 34, 34, and 13.5. When I add up those values, I should get, 81.5%. Okay, let's look at number 4. So it says, what percent of songs are shorter than 168 seconds? And then we want to do shorter than 194 seconds here. Okay, so we look here if we're doing 168 and shorter. So shorter means we want to go from 168 to the left. So we would add up 0.15% and 2.35%. That would give us 2.5%. And then let's talk about how did we get 194. So we're shorter than 194. So basically, oops, wrong way. So basically here we're starting from 194 going to the left. So we add up the 2.5% that we got and add it to the 13.5%. When we add those up, that'll kind of give us the same values we did up here. That'll give us 16%. Okay, now let's look at number 5, excuse me. It says, what percent of songs are shorter than 181 seconds? Well, let's look at our normal distribution, 181. Notice that 181 is not one of our values on this normal distribution. It is actually kind of between. So 181 is maybe like right here. I don't know, something like that. So maybe some of you, when you figured this out, you did the 0.15%, the 2.35%, and maybe you divided that 13.5% because 181 is kind of in between. So you may have gotten, when we did that, so 0.15 plus 2.35 plus, and then 13.5 divided by 2. So maybe you got 9.25%. Okay. Well, here, because our 181 is not a value on our curve here, right? We have exact values here. We can't really just estimate, okay? So our normal distribution, that 68, 95, 99.7% rule, it actually really doesn't work with that number of 181. So what that means is anytime in math, right, when some tool doesn't work, we got to figure out another tool that works. So we're actually going to have to use something different or something new to find this information. So what we're going to use, and this is what we call now the standard normal distribution, is we're going to actually use a table, which you have with you, that's going to give us these percentages. Now, in order to get percentages, though, we're going to have to use what is called the z-score. So remember, you guys learned about that yesterday, the idea of a z-score. So let's figure out the z-score for 181. So remember how we find the z-score? We do 181 minus the mean, which is 220, over the standard deviation. So you plug this into your calculator, and we get about negative 1.5. So what that means is, well, 181 is negative 1.5 standard deviations below the mean. But once again, right, we don't know exactly. When we have here, we got a half here, so 1.5. We don't know exactly what the percentage is. Now, the reason here why we can't do 13.5 and divided by 2 is because of this curve. Notice that the area on one side is not going to be the same area on the other side. That's why we can't really just do, well, it's half, right? 1.5 is in the middle. Well, the areas, because we're doing area underneath the curve, is not exactly the same. So that's why we can't just do 13.5 divided by 2. So instead, what we're going to have to do is use that z-score that we have, the negative 1.5, and then this table that will give us the percentage, okay? Now, this table, what we call, is the standard normal distribution. And so basically the table gives us the percentage underneath the curve on the left-hand side, okay? And that's actually what we're wanting here. We want, because we're doing shorter, all right, we want, if we have this negative 1.5, that's the z-score, or 181, we want the area underneath the curve. So this is what we're wanting. We're going to use our table to do that. So what I'm going to have to do is, on your table, you have one side where it's positive values. On the other side is the negative values. And actually, I have this on my here. There we go. So we have positive z-scores. And then we have these negative z-scores. Okay, so since our z-score is negative, we're going to be on the negative side. Now, our negative z-score was negative 1.5. So that's what we were wanting to look for, negative 1.5. Oop, here it is. Okay, now you're going to see a lot of these numbers. Well, what do these numbers represent? Well, notice that we have the hundredths place here. So remember, when we do z-scores, we want to round to 2 decimals. Now notice that my hundredths place is going to be a 0. So that's what this 0.00 represents, that my hundredths place is a 0. So this is the value that I'm wanting here, this 0.0668. Now you'll notice that on the table, well, these values are decimals. So we get 0.0668. They're decimals. What we have to do is change to a percentage. How we change to a percentage, and we really should know how to do this, is we're just going to move the decimal over 2 times to the right. So really, our percentage here is 6.68%. So notice how that is a little bit off than maybe the percentage you got here using that normal distribution curve, okay? So here's what we're going to be doing. When we get values that are not on the normal distribution curve, we're actually going to have to use this standard normal distribution table to find the information. So now let's go ahead and put this all together. So standard normal distribution. So we use this when we cannot use the 68, 95, 99.7 rule. So we cannot use a normal distribution. And so remember, the normal distribution is that 68, 95, 99.7% rule. So we have to use the standard normal. So how we do that is we first find the z-score. So we talked about that as stated yesterday. Remember, that's your value minus the mean over the standard deviation. So you find that first. Then you're going to use the table. So that's standard normal distribution table. Gosh, there you go. to find the percentage. Now remember, the table gives you a decimal, so you do have to change that decimal into a percentage. Now the other thing is, and you may notice this on your chart as well, maybe below, let's see if it's below, yes. Basically, the chart only actually gives you the area or percentage to the left. It doesn't actually give you the percentage to the right. So what that means, like if it's saying, hey, we want values smaller than something, oh, here's our percentage. That works. But what happens if we want values to the right? So to find the percentage to the right, or basically another way we can say the area of the curve on the right-hand side, so this stuff, what we're going to have to do is we do 1 minus the area. Okay, so remember the area is that decimal we see, so decimal on the table. That's what we're going to have to do to find anything to the right. So you do 1 minus the area or 1 minus the decimal on the table. And that's how you really find the area or find the percentage to the right. Okay, make sure you guys watch part 2 of this lesson for notes.